Cars, buses and trucks had been commandeered to create 50-odd roadblocks in Jalisco and 3 neighbouring states. Many were set alight.
To commandeer means to take over something like a car or a truck for military purposes most of the time. So if the military needs your car, they're going to commandeer it, and you just give them the car. You can think of it as commanding. A commander commands you to give them your car. And it can also be used in a non-military sense too, similar to, let's say, a carjacking, where the carjacker commandeered your car and you were lucky enough to get out of the vehicle. Also, commandeer can mean either the original driver stays as the driver or the military person takes over. Also, commandeer can be applied to other things too, such as buildings, food, anything that functions as a resource. As example, the New Orleans Police Department had an understanding with the shop owners in the French Quarter in New Orleans that if there was a hurricane, that they were going to come in and commandeer anything they needed, which they did. Of course, in their case, they also included CDs and and booze, but the concept still holds. So to commandeer means to take possession of something without authority, especially for military purposes. And these can, as example, cars, buses, and trucks have been commandeered to create 50-odd roadblocks, which means that these authorities, they took control of these cars and used them to make roadblocks. So if you're driving on the highway and a soldier stops you and tells you to get out of your car and they jump in and drive off, your car has been commandeered. Or similarly, you'll see old movies, oftentimes from the 1920s and 1930s, where the police will just tell somebody to get out of their car and then go use the car to chase after the bad guy. During the late 60s and early 70s, terrorists oftentimes commandeered aircraft to go to Cuba or to go to different places around the globe. During World War II, when the United States first got started, they had a shortage of some of the military things that they needed. So they commandeered most of the airliners in the United States to use for military purposes. They also commandeered most of the major passenger liners to use for troop transports.
The criminal group responsible for the events today will be dismantled, just like the others, vowed Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto on Twitter.
To dismantle means to take something apart. Which can be a machine. It can also be an organization of some type, typically a criminal organization. So, as example, the FBI, over a period of quite a number of years, they managed to dismantle most of the mafia in the United States to the point where mafiosa, they didn't even want to become the godfather or top guy there anymore, because becoming the top guy was too often a quick road to going to prison. And it's the same apparently in Italy, where they have been able to dismantle a lot of these criminal organizations quite successfully. You can also dismantle a machine For example, a rifle. Soldiers learn to dismantle their rifles in pretty quick order, like a minute or two. They can take the rifle down into all of its component pieces. So in this context, the criminal group responsible for the events will be dismantled, which means to take the organization apart into its component pieces, which happens to be the individuals involved. There was a historic house right across the street from where I lived, and they wanted to put in a shopping center, and there was a big ruckus about the whole thing. And finally, the developer agreed to dismantle the house and to reconstruct it in a different location. But as far as I know, the house ended up in a bunch of boxes, and I don't know if anybody ever put it back together again. There's been a lot of protests lately where the protesters want to dismantle the EU because they think that too much power has been put together centrally and that the individual countries are no longer strong enough to run their own affairs anymore.
That's all for today. Tom Taylor is an ESL tutor. He teaches English in the United States and outside, all over the world using Skype. He can be reached at his website, which is
ESL-fullsteamahead.com.
Click on this link and check out his website and email with questions. Thank you, Tom, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.